The Mayan civilization was one of the most advanced cultures of the ancient world. They built great cities in the jungles of Central America, created beautiful art, and developed a deep understanding of the stars. But one of their most mysterious and fascinating legacies is their calendar, carved in stone, and the prophecies that came with it. Long ago, the Mayans studied the sky. They watched the movement of the sun, the moon, and the planets. They believed that time moved in cycles, and that these cycles could predict the future. To keep track of these cycles, they created a complex system of calendars. The most famous of these was the long count calendar, which measured time in units called baktuns. One baktun was about 394 years. The Mayans believed that when a cycle of 13 baktuns ended, the world would change in a great way. The last time this cycle ended was on December 21st, 2012. Many people thought this date meant the end of the world. But the Mayans did not predict destruction. Instead, they believed it marked the end of one age and the beginning of another, a time of transformation. The Mayans carved their knowledge into stone. On ancient monuments, they recorded dates and events that were important to their kings and gods. One of the most famous carvings is the Tortuguero monument from the 7th century. It mentions the end of the 13th baktun cycle, but does not speak of doom. Instead, it describes the return of a god named Bolon Yokte, who was connected to war and creation. Some believe this meant a time of great change, not the end of everything. The Mayan calendar was not just one system, but many. They had a sacred 260-day calendar called the Tzolk'in, used for religious ceremonies. They also had a solar calendar of 365 days, called the Haab, for farming and daily life. Together, these calendars created a 52-year cycle, after which time was believed to renew itself. But why did the Mayans care so much about time? To them, time was sacred. The gods controlled its flow, and humans had to follow its rhythms. Kings used the calendar to plan wars, ceremonies, and even the building of their cities. They believed that if they performed rituals at the right time, the gods would favor them. If they ignored the cycles, disaster could come. The Mayans also believed in prophecy. Their priests studied the stars and made predictions. Some of these prophecies were about natural events, like eclipses or droughts. Others were about wars or the rise and fall of kings. The most famous prophecy is the one connected to the end of the 13th baktun, but many others remain hidden in the ruins of their cities. One of the most mysterious Mayan prophecies comes from the Dresden Codex, an ancient book made of bark paper. It describes a great flood that would come at the end of a cycle. Some believe this was a warning about climate change or natural disasters. Others think it was a symbolic story about cleansing and rebirth. The Mayan civilization faded long before the Spanish arrived in the 1500s. Their great cities were abandoned, and the jungle covered their temples. But their knowledge did not disappear. The descendants of the Mayans kept their traditions alive, passing down stories and rituals. Today, scholars continue to study their carvings, trying to understand their prophecies and wisdom. The Mayan calendar was more than just a way to count days. It was a map of time itself, showing how the past, present, and future were connected. The prophecies carved in stone were not just predictions. They were warnings and lessons. The Mayans believed that history repeated itself, and that by understanding the patterns of time, humans could live in harmony with the world. When December 21st, 2012, came and went without catastrophe, many people laughed at the idea of Mayan prophecies. But perhaps they misunderstood. The Mayans did not say the world would end. They said it would change. And in many ways, it has. Our world is different now than it was before 2012. New challenges have appeared, but so have new possibilities. The stone carvings of the Mayans still stand, silent but full of meaning. They remind us that time is a cycle, not a straight line. What has happened before may happen again. The past is not gone. It is part of the present and it shapes the future. The Mayans looked to the sky and saw order in the universe. They believed that humans were part of a greater story, one written in the stars and carved in stone. Their calendar was their way of reading that story. And though their civilization is gone, their wisdom remains, waiting for those who are willing to listen. So the next time you look at the stars, remember the Mayans. They knew that time was not just numbers, it was a living thing, full of mystery and power. And perhaps, if we learn from their prophecies, we can find our own place in the great cycle of the world.